Today I'm going to show you how to knit this super easy, adjustable, beginner-friendly top. You'll need some worsted weight yarn, preferably containing cotton, like this Ice Yarns Lorena worsted. It's pretty heavy for a worsted weight yarn and would probably be borderline chunky by European standards, but Lily Sugar and Cream or a similar worsted cotton should work. You'll need a US 7, aka 4.5mm set of needles. I'll start with straight needles, but move on to circulars as my stitches grow. And you will need circulars, no bigger than 35 inches I'd say, for the body portion. To begin, we'll cast on a small number of stitches. I'm using the long tail cast on method, and I'll flash on the screen how many stitches to cast on for different sizes. I'm making the small size, so I'll cast on 20 stitches. And all size, gauge, and stitch count information is in the free written copy of the pattern that you can find linked in the description box below this video. So first, for row 1, we'll just knit all the stitches. Then, for row 2, you'll start the row with a yarn over increase. To do a yarn over, you'll scoop your working yarn up with your right needle like this, and hold it with your thumb. If you're holding the working yarn in your right hand, it'll look like this, and then you can knit into the first stitch. So I'm going to hold my yarn in my left hand, yarn over, and knit. This yarn over will become a loosey-goosey stitch that you'll knit at the end of the next row, increasing your stitch count by 1. So continue knitting all of the remaining stitches. And you'll repeat row 2, yarn over, knit all stitches for the entire upper halter portion of the top, until your piece gives you as much coverage as you want in the front, from about the collarbone to underboob. For the small size I was knitting, my piece was about 7.5 inches long at this point. And like I mentioned, all size info can be found in the free written pattern. So now it's time to join in the round. Rather than turning your work to knit flat, keep your working yarn needle in your right hand, and we'll cast on some stitches before joining in the round. I'll put some sample stitch counts for different waist measurements on the screen. You'll count the stitches you have on your needles now and subtract that number from the one on the screen, and then you'll cast on the difference. So I'm going to use the backwards loop cast on method, very simple, to cast on 8 more stitches. Now with your additional stitches cast on, it's really easy to join in the round. Just start knitting the stitches on your left needle. And now you're working in the round. And you'll knit around and around in a tube for the body portion. I wanted to show you here when you get to your cast on stitches, it might seem like the stitches themselves are very tight and hard to work, and they have these big gaps in between them. But don't worry, that will all even out the more that you knit. That's just kind of how the backwards loop cast on is. So just muddle through those few cast on stitches and it'll be easy street from here on. You'll just knit around and around. And since we're knitting around and around, we've switched to stockinette stitch, with all the knits on one side, but the right side of this top will actually be the purl side. We'll just turn it inside out when we're done. So keep knitting until the bodice piece is about 10 inches long, or as long as you want it to be, and bind off. Now, I don't recommend a basic bind off, where you knit one and pass one over. I tried it and it was just too tight. I had a hard time getting the top on and off and over my shoulders, so I suggest a stretchy bind off like this one that I used. You'll knit a stitch, and then slip the next 2 stitches knitwise back onto your left needle. Then insert your right needle through the back loops of those stitches to knit them together through the back loop. A kind of shorthand way to do this bind off is to keep the stitches on your right needle and just insert your left needle into both of them knitwise at the same time. This gets everything in the right position to knit 2 together through the back loop, just a little bit quicker. And you may have noticed my needles changed color. Those pink needles are a part of the classic Boy Needle Master interchangeable set, and I did a little review on those needles recently, so if you're curious about them, I'll link to that video as well, and you can watch it after this one. Now, all that's left for the body is to fasten off. And I'll show you how I fix this little gap at the bind-off edge. I'll thread a tapestry needle with the tail, and find that very first V-shaped bind-off edge stitch, and thread my tail under both legs of that V. Then I'll come back around, find the last V-shaped stitch of the bind-off edge, and work my tail under both legs of that stitch. And now I've created a little V with the tail that joins those 2 edges together. Now I'll just weave my tail in on the knit side because I want the purl side to be on the right side. And that's because I like the look of the curled stockinette edge curling under rather than out. Now on to the straps. My top stayed up with a neck halter strap alone. You may want to also add some support by lacing up the back, which is so easy to do with these yarn over increases, and I'll show you how to do that in a sec. But let's do the halter straps first. I made 2 20-inch long I-cords, and I'll have a link to my 5 ways to make I-cords video, which includes the super quick crochet hook, kinda cheater method that I use to make these. All you have to do is attach them to the first and last stitches on the cast-on edge from the beginning of your top. And I found using a small crochet hook was the easiest way to get under these stitches. And I just tied my straps on. They'll hold your top up by tying a little bow behind your neck. And like I mentioned, this top stayed up without a back strap, but it's really easy to add one. Just take a longer I-cord and thread it through evenly the bottom 2 yarn overs. Then crisscross your straps, skip 2 or 3 yarn overs, and lace it up just like a shoelace. Tying it up in the back can add support, and it also just looks really pretty. So there you have it, a very adjustable, versatile knit top that I think even a newbie could tackle. Plus a cool intro into some new techniques like casting on in the middle of your work, switching from working flat to working in the round, stretchy bind-offs. There's some serious knitting going on here. So if you still consider yourself a beginner and you're getting comfortable knitting stuff like this, you're well on your way to intermediate status, I guarantee it. Don't forget to get your copy of the written pattern on my website. The description box is full of goodies for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
Oh, hi!
Oh, hi! Can I have a kiss? Mwah!